Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Fun and Games Podcast Side Quests. My name is Corey Dirrig. I am the founder of Boss Rush Media and the Boss Rush Network. I host the Boss Rush Podcast and Tower Casuals, the Destiny Podcast, as well as co-host many other things on the Boss Rush Network, including Nintendo Power Block, Video Game Book Club, Spotlight Podcast, all those kinds of things. You can check us out on bossrush.net or on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/bossrushnetwork. I'm excited to be here because I am going to talk about one of my favorite games, maybe of all time, and it's a pretty recent one. It's also a pretty divisive one for a lot of reasons. It felt like it was getting pretty solid reviews in the beginning, and then more and more reviews started coming out, and people on podcasts started talking about it, and overall it felt pretty divisive. I think the people that love it really love it and truly understand what Ninja Theory was trying to do. And on the other hand, I think people were expecting something different and got more of the same, or, you know, even a shorter experience than the first one. But my game that I will be talking about today is Senua Saga Hellblade II from Ninja Theory and Xbox Game Studios. It is available on Game Pass, PC Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass, Cloud, wherever you kind of want to play this thing. It's also available on Steam and the Xbox Store. I assume it'll probably be one of the games that Xbox puts on PlayStation at some point. So you can kind of play it anywhere. This series in general means a lot to me. I'm not going to talk a lot about the first game because I know that somebody is talking about that game on a different episode that has probably already gone out. And so I'm not going to talk a lot about that. I will say that I have played through the first game 3 times, and each time I played it, I got something more out of it, especially this last time that I played it earlier this year for 2 reasons. One, it was our video game book club for the month of March, so you can listen to that if you really want to hear us talk about it. Or, you know, I also replayed it because I wanted to prepare for the second game, which came out in May of 2024, just a month ago as of the time of this recording. So I just want to say that as somebody who has been dealing with some mental health issues the last 12 to 18 months, I want to say, and really trying to find a way to deal with all that, playing the first game again and then going kind of right into the second game was a really powerful and emotional thing for me. Again, I'm not going to make this a whole thing about the first game or even the things that, you know, I've kind of been trying to deal with on my own with mental health stuff. But, it does play a huge part in why I feel like these games mean something more to me or someone like me than just the average player, right? Because if you look at the game, if you look at Senua Saga, just as a game, you don't know that it's, you go into it thinking it's just like an action game, right? And you're going to go through this world and fight bad guys and giants and whatever. You know, as a game with no meaning behind it, it's, as someone who actually kind of likes these types of games, I would probably give it a 7 in terms of just gameplay and the type of game it is and how the game is structured. But with that story behind it and the performances, especially Melina Juergen's performance as Senua is always powerful, right? It's so, I mean, the first game, it was extremely surprising. And then the second one, like the way that, she was captured, and then Unreal Engine 5 just being this spectacular engine and, kind of really blurring the lines of real life and game at some points. Like there were points in this game where I did not know if it was the game or the engine, and or if it was the engine or like a live action cutscene. And it turns out this entire game is just an engine. There are definitely points where I was like, oh, this is a game, where like the character model kind of, especially when it's like there's certain lighting aspects that make the character look kind of strange, or when characters are wet, sometimes they kind of have that plasticky look and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. And that's something that Unreal has actually been not, I don't want to say not great at, but that's something that I've always noticed with Unreal, even with Unreal Engine 3 and like the Arkham games back in the day. But this game is a beautiful experience, from start to finish. And the way that Senua sees the world in this game, right? The way she's able to see the world differently because of her mental illness, or she, for those who are listening to this, she suffers from psychosis, which is a mental illness where you hear voices in your head, and sometimes they fight with each other and fight with you, and you really struggle to make decisions, and you struggle to kind of decipher kind of what the right decision is or the wrong decision, or if something is real and right in front of you or not. And I think that this game really does a great job of displaying that in a very physical way. And I think that's what makes this game so powerful, is like, I know everybody kind of hears the voice in their head, right? Or everybody has that, oh, should I do this? Should I not? But a lot of the times when people make decisions, they make the decision, they do the thing, and then they never think about it again, right? And that's it. That's it. That decision's done. That task is done. We're moving on. As someone who struggles to make the decision, and then once the decision is made, you second guess yourself 900 times. And then once the task is done, you go back and say, well, if I would have done this, would it have done this? Or, that's kind of a thing that I'm working through right now with, my podcast is the big joke between me and my co-host Laurent is that we're tinkerers. And if we see something that could be a little bit better, or we could tweak it a little bit to make it a little bit more interesting, we're going to try to do it. And, the big thing with podcasts is that consistency is key. And so that's something that I'm working on, but I'm not going to go into it here. But you see Senua kind of fight the voices, or fight the dark figure in this game, which is her father, just like the first game. And the deep voice, or the dreamscapes that she goes to during certain parts of the game, or it's just very literal. Or even when she's fighting the giants, right? Those are very literal interpretations of mentally challenging hurdles, right? And it's just so, in my opinion, it is so well done. It is so fascinating to watch this story unfold from a perspective of kind of learning about all these different types of mental illnesses over the last 18 months, and talking to doctors and specialists about certain ones, and how people experience them. I really like the combat. I think the combat even ties into this a little bit, where very clearly Senua is in a combat scenario. It's usually like 1-on-1, or at the very most 2-on-1. So let me back up. The game recommends you wear headphones during this, and during combat you hear like the 360 sound of the voices in her head you're hearing while you are in combat scenarios, or solving puzzles, or going through environments. And they will try to trick you. They will try to tell you to do something that you are very clearly not doing. When you're in a combat scenario, they'll say, look out behind you, and the enemy is very clearly in front of you. Or sometimes there is another enemy behind you, and you just have to try to make that judgment call based on the other sounds that you hear. And it's very, It's very fascinating. It's very wonderful. I think even like when you're wandering through the environments, right? And one of the puzzles, I'm not going to go into major story spoilers here, but the way that you look at the world and the way that she sees the world, specifically the very literal interpretation of that is when you see the faces in the rocks, and those become new pathways to go find a secret. That is a very literal interpretation of being able to see the world differently, and that's my favorite type of storytelling, is when you take something that is so, you don't really understand it from a normal person's point of view, and you make it a very literal interpretation. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but for me in this game, it works. Right? And so I just really I really love the way this game does things, and the way that she like starts becoming a leader of this group of people who are from all over the place. The slaver at the beginning, who's very clearly her enemy and she wants to kill and almost leaves him for dead. As you make your way through the games, you find that there is a friendship there. Or when you find the character, I think it's Druth from the first game. It's the same voice actor, and it's very clearly the same face. I'm pretty sure he has a different name in this game, but I just the way he kind of plays the mentor character and his kind of mysterious path in this game. It's just, and then when you come across the civilization in the third act of the game, and you're dealing with the female character that she's shown in the trailers, it's Astrior, and you're kind of trying to figure out if she's your enemy or if she's your friend, or if she's just kind of like using you, and like the voices in your head kind of are playing with that emotion, like, should I trust her, should I not? You should trust her, you shouldn't trust her, she's gonna kill you, she's gonna lead you, these types of things. And you hear those voices tell that, and you end up trying to really fight through these voices as as Senua. And so my kind of final thoughts as I wrap up here, I think if you are in the right mind space and you kind of understand what they're trying to do, and I think Ninja Theory does this so well, especially with the first game. And well, I would say especially with the first game, as Senua makes the journey alone, and then they do a very valiant job of extending that story to Senua and allowing her to interact with companions. And I think that that's really special. I think that is unique. I don't think anybody else is trying to do this in video games, right? I mean, Sony is pretty known for telling, these epic kind of stories that, I know the term sad dad simulator is out there floating around for games like God of War and The Last of Us, and even Uncharted to an extent now. But I think, Sony has done a pretty decent job of telling stories, but this is a very different type of story. And I highly recommend going through this game and exploring every inch of the game. Right, it's not a very long game. I think my first playthrough was 5.5 hours. I think I just wanted to experience it, and then I played through it again immediately. Played through it again to go find all the lore stones and the trees, the secret trees, and I was learning about the lore of the area and of it's very fascinating. It's also, if you're an achievement hunter, it's a very easy game to get all 1,000 achievements in. So there's that too, if you want to chase it. But Senua Saga Hellblade 2 is probably a top 15-20 experience for me in video games. It's become one of my favorite video games of all time, and I will not back down from that statement. And so I hope you all try it out. I hope you all get to play it. Like I said, it's on PC Game Pass. If you don't own an Xbox, it's on Xbox Game Pass. If you do, it's $50 on Steam. It's available pretty much everywhere except for PlayStation, I guess. So check it out. I highly recommend it. Please go in with the right mindset and expectations. Also, play the first game too if you have a chance. There is a great story kind of recap at the beginning if you don't find yourself having time to play the first game, although the first game's only about 7 or 8 hours as well. Please play it. Ninja Theory has made a very touching experience, and I'm really sad that this game has a lot of mixed feelings because I really think they made something special even outside of the visual phenomenon that this game is. You know, I didn't even touch on that, but there are times where I thought that this game had live action cutscenes, and this entire game is done in Unreal Engine 5. So check it out. I want to thank Matt for giving me the opportunity to talk about this game. It means a lot to me. The game means so much to me in a lot of different ways. Matt has been nothing but kind and great to us over the last, few months since we met at PAX. And even before that, they've just been such a supporter, and I can't say enough good things about them. So thank you so much for allowing me to do this. Thank you guys out there for listening to this episode of Side Quests, and happy gaming.
Have you ever been reading through a stack of comics and thought, maybe I should see what this Arkham Asylum game is all about? Or been playing Marvel vs. Capcom and felt like you were at a real disadvantage since you didn't know who half the characters were? Well, Play Comics is the show for you. I'm Chris, and each episode we take a look at video games based on comic properties and how well they stick to that source material. So whether you know the comics and want to know how all these games work, or you know the games and want to find out where all this craziness came from, go check out Play Comics at playcomics.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.